In this Ellerton Associates Technology Training Tip of the Month, I'll be showing you how to use Sparklines to show trends in Excel 2010 or 2013. Okay, I have Excel up on the screen, and in this first worksheet, I'm showing you the traditional method for presenting data graphically to show trends, for example, in a line chart, or trends or comparing values in a column chart. It's to use regular charts, and of course you can still do that, but if you want to show this kind of data without having to create these separate objects, without having to have them take up room on the screen, I can actually show this same data almost in the exact same way, though not as formatable, using the Sparklines. Now, Sparklines were introduced in Excel 2010, and they are carried forward in 2013. If you're using Excel 2007 or earlier, you won't see this option. So what I'm going to do is go to the Sparklines tab, and I have the same data. This time I'll be putting the Sparklines, which really are just mini charts, in this trend column, and that's where they'll be. So the first step is to select the cells into which you want the Sparklines to go. So I'm going to select G5 through G8. I'll come up to the Insert tab, and there is a Sparklines group. This looks pretty much the same in Excel 2010 or 2013. It is 2013 I'm using. Now there are three types of Sparklines. Line Sparklines are usually the ones you see used. They show trends across time very nicely. You can do a column Sparkline. Those can show trends. They're also good at comparing each of the columns, what their size is, so you can compare the numbers. And win-loss simply shows whether a number is positive or negative. It gives you no trend or comparison information beyond that. So I'm going to go with a line. And when I click, it brings up the Create Sparklines dialog box. Now the location range is what I selected. That's where the Sparklines are going to go. Notice the cursor is blinking in data range. If it wasn't, though, I'd want to click in there. Once in a while, your cursor when you come in here will be in location range. Definitely click in data range because that's where you're going to put the range of numbers the Sparklines will be showing the trend for. So I'm going to drag over the first through fourth quarter numbers, not including the total. And I'm going to click OK. So note that I get a line chart for each row. It's showing the trend for the numbers in that row. And you can even see when you look at this one, if you look at the numbers, yes, they are each going up and you can see that trend. Whereas in the case of Chicago, the number went down and then it started going up. So you can tell that the trend is being accurately portrayed by that Sparkline. And that's really all there is to it. Now, if I want to enhance the Sparkline, perhaps by showing markers or formatting it, all of that is available when I have either the entire group or even just a single Sparkline within the group I created. When they're selected, there is a Sparkline Tools Design ribbon. You may need to click Design to see it. So I can change the type of Sparkline. I'm going to do a column one and a win-loss one for you here in a moment. You can show different markers. Maybe I just want to show the markers. And note that now I get dots on each point on the line. That might make it easier to read. I can also differentiate between the high and the low point, just to show you. I'll click in both of those too. Now, it is kind of hard to tell what those little dots are and what their color is, but I can also format them using either a built-in style, and I'm just going to pick this one. So notice if I click away for a minute, I have kind of green lines. The markers are blue, but the lowest marker is red and the highest marker is green. That's kind of handy. I'm going to click in the group again, look back at design. Now, if I don't like these styles, I can edit the colors individually, and then I've got some options for working with the axis. Now, I am going to show you one other option on this ribbon. I'm not going to go into every option on here. There's quite a few things you can do with these, but if you want to delete them, if I select the group and I hit delete on the keyboard, nothing happening. To get rid of Sparklines, you have to use the clear button on the Sparkline Tools Design tab. So if I click clear, it clears the selected Sparklines. I actually don't want that, so I'm going to undo it. Just wanted to show you that that's the way that works though. So now I'm going to click in G9, and what I want here is a column Sparkline. Because I decide for the totals, I would like to see the columns because that's a nicer way to compare what each total was, as well as see the trend across time. So I've clicked in G9. I'm going to go up to Insert. I'm going to choose Column as my Sparkline type. Again, if the cursor's not already in data range, I click there and I drag over the numbers and click OK. Now, that's a pretty tiny little squished column chart, but you can resize the rows and columns to let the Sparkline take up more room. If I make row 9 taller, That certainly is helpful. And you can see, these numbers definitely are going up, and so the spark lines are. If I really wanted to, I could make column G a little wider as well. And I could make these rows taller to see those trend lines a little better. It's totally up to you. But now this is a separate sparkline. And again, when you look at the Sparkline Tools Design tab, I can show high and low points. I can style this. I'm perfectly happy with it the way it is. So there with sparklines instead of charts, I've basically accomplished the same thing those other full charts did. Now, you may be wondering about the win-loss sparkline. I have an example for that, just one of many examples I could come up with. So on this worksheet, I have what I did before, the trend lines and the column chart, and then I've added a couple of columns where I have formulas. I've got an if formula, and basically each one of these is starting with quarter 2, comparing its number to quarter 1, and if it's equal or larger, I put a positive 1, or like here, notice we went down from quarter 1 to quarter 2, that's a negative. So my formula results in either positive 1 or negative 1, depending on whether each quarter was an increase or a decrease over the previous. And that would be a nice thing to see with win-loss sparklines. I'm actually trending these numbers. I can't put formulas directly in the sparkline, so I'm putting the formulas on the worksheet. I'll base these sparklines on the result of these formulas. So I'm going to select those 4 cells. I'm going to come up to Insert. I'll do win-loss. The data range is going to be these numbers, my positive or negative numbers, and I'll click OK. And that's basically what win-loss does. It's simply blue bars for positive numbers, red bars for negative numbers. It shows nothing about the comparison, which is why using one and negative one is perfectly fine. Now here's the thing. Probably I don't want to see columns H through J. So I'm going to drag across them and right-click and hide, and my sparklines disappear. So by default, the sparklines don't show data if the columns are hidden. Let me just go ahead and undo that hide and show you what I can do about that. I'm going to select these sparklines, go up to Sparkline Tools Design, and that's one of the Edit Data options. If I go to Edit Data, I can choose how hidden and empty cells are handled. By default, the data is not shown in hidden rows and columns, but I can simply turn on that I want it to be. All right, now I can hide H through J, right-click and hide them, and there we go. So the sparklines remain, and I can see very quickly at a glance, for example, that Chicago from first to second quarter actually had a loss, but then it equaled or was greater for the other 2 quarters. And then the other place we had a loss was in Detroit in the last from third to fourth quarter, there was a loss, but comparing those two. So not much space taken up and all kinds of good stuff going on graphically presenting these numbers using sparklines. To learn more about our classes, please visit us at www.ellertraining.com.